Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and with the launch of the new iPhone 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max, I thought we'd go over 17 settings you need to know to get the most out of your new device. Now the first thing has to do with power and battery. If we go into settings, go down to battery, scroll to the bottom once everything's loaded, you'll see that we have power mode. Within power mode, we now have adaptive power. This is something that can be very helpful to get you additional battery life, and it's enabled by default from Apple. However, there may be reasons you would want to turn it off. So what it does is it says when your battery usage is higher than usual, iPhone can extend your battery life by making performance adjustments such as lowering display brightness, allowing some activities to take longer, or turning on low power mode at 20%. While this sounds good, sometimes it could slow down the phone, so maybe the phone is outside and you're noticing the display isn't bright enough. You may want to try and disable this if you're not seeing that display be at full brightness. If you are and it's not a problem, leave it enabled, but it's something I would try out and see what works for you. Also, when it's active, it will let you know. But if you don't care about that, you can disable the notifications as well, so it doesn't tell you that it's active and it just works in the background. So try this out, see which one works best for you. And typically I leave it on as I find it doesn't really bother me, but as it gets hotter outside and brighter, you may want to disable that. Now the next thing has to do with your battery life itself. If we go down to our battery settings, you'll see battery health. It should be at 100% when it's brand new, and you can see here under charging. I would recommend at least having optimized battery charging enabled. So this is something I typically leave on. I'll put it on a charger at night, let it charge up to 80%. By the time I wake up, it's at 100%. But if you want to get the absolute most out of your actual battery health, you may want to bring this down to 90 or even 80%. But I typically like to get the most out of my battery, so I let it manage it on its own. But this is something you definitely want to check out, see what works best for you. And then of course you have that option here. I typically leave it on default at optimized battery charging. Apple has added a feature I've been wanting for years with iPhone 17 models. It covers all iPhone 17s, and it's found under your settings, then under accessibility, under display and text size, and then scroll down and you'll see a new option for display pulse smoothing. You'll see it says PWM or pulse width modulation. That's the way the display controls brightness. Since Apple started using OLED displays, the way it controls brightness is flickering the display faster or slower. This sometimes, even though you can't see it, can cause about 1 in 10 people, including myself, to either get eye strain, headaches, or even feel nauseated just from looking at the display, especially at lower brightness levels. To combat this and to fix that issue, they have display pulse smoothing. So I would recommend turning this on if you're sensitive to that, and you'll definitely know if you are. It says disables pulse width modulation to provide a different way to dim the OLED display, which can create a smoother display output at low brightness levels. Disabling PWM may affect low brightness display performance under certain conditions. So again, enable that if you find that the display is bothering your eyes. If it's not, turn it off and it really won't harm anything. But I wanted to recommend it as this is something I've been waiting for years. Now also to do with your display, something I would recommend enabling based on if you like this or not is under display and brightness, scroll down and you have always on display. I typically like the always on display, which means when the phone is locked, it will display something here in the background, whether it's the time or even the wallpaper, and there's a couple options to modify here. You'll see we have show wallpaper. We don't have to show it at all, so it sort of just dims to black in the background. Or we can actually blur the wallpaper. So if we do want to show the wallpaper, now it will blur when it's locked. So you have this sort of coming alive look when you unlock your phone and it shows the details of the wallpaper. Again, you can show notifications or just turn it off altogether. It does use a little bit of power, but it's fairly minimal. But if you're finding that you're getting through the day and need more power at the end of the day, I would recommend either customizing this or turning it off entirely based on your need. Now, one of the main reasons you may have bought an iPhone 17, whether it's the Pro, Pro Max, or base models, is the new cameras. There's some nice upgrades here, but there's some settings you should know about to modify first to set that works best for you. So we'll go down to our settings, go down to camera, and then you'll see camera control. We'll come back to that later. But if we go down to record video, typically this is set at a lower resolution when you start. Go into record video, and I would recommend setting it somewhere in the 4K range, depending on which works for you. So you'll see I have mine set at 4K 60. That's typically if I want smooth video, or I can slow that down to about half speed afterwards when I'm editing it to sort of get some slow motion out of it. If I want even better slow motion, we have 4K 120. I would again scroll down a little bit further and recommend maybe turning off HDR if you don't want super bright video. While HDR is great for some things, it's not great for everything, and some people may not like it, so I would recommend turning that off if you don't want it, or leaving it on if you do. Another setting I would recommend is down at the bottom here where it says lock white balance. This allows you to lock the white balance, or sort of the color temperature, when you start recording your video. Instead of it changing throughout that recording, sometimes you could go from a white to a yellow to a blue, and you'll see it slowly change between those tints while you're recording the video. If you want to lock it and make sure it doesn't change, so it's the similar sort of look all throughout the video, I would recommend turning that on, and it will just stay as wherever it was when you hit record for the first time. Also, if we go back up here, we'll go back to our main camera settings, and if we scroll down here, you'll see an option for indicators. Within indicators, I would go in here and make sure you have certain things on that you want to show up in your camera app. For example, if you want the flash, turn that on. If you want live photos, turn it on or leave it off. Or if you want action mode, turn that on. And one of the new features, dual capture, I would recommend at least turning on to try out. So what that means is if we go into the camera app here, and maybe we go into video, we have this new option here in the upper right. So if we go in the upper right, we have this button, and this enables dual recording. We can record from the front-facing camera and the rear camera at the same time, and then it saves it as a single file. So now I could comment maybe on the new iPhone, upload it to social media, and then I'll have that file here. So you'll see it once it's recorded. I'm up here, and it's the file that I just recorded, and we can scrub through it. So that's something that's new that you can enable in your settings. Within the main camera settings, if we scroll to the bottom, there's a new setting I would recommend enabling on all iPhone 17s. It's called Lens Cleaning Hints. It displays a suggestion when the camera lens should be cleaned to improve image quality. So maybe you got a smudge on the front camera, or maybe the back cameras are dirty and have some smudges or fingerprints on them. It will let you know that you may want to clean your cameras in order to get the best image quality. Now there's more settings to talk about, more pro settings as well, and we'll come back to those in a moment, but when you're using your new iPhone 17, you want to keep it safe without thinking about it so you can focus on taking photos and turning your moments into stories. Today's sponsor, Taurus, and the new O-stand case for iPhone 17 Pro Max offers aesthetic colors that complement the new iPhone 17 Pro Max colors. The Q3 Air keeps the iPhone safe with its airbag protection design. It also has an anti-slip side, giving you a secure grip, and the 360 degrees spinning stand helps when filming and can withstand up to 30,000 folds without loosening. This is the Q3 silicone case. As you can see, the texture is silky smooth and soft, making it comfortable to hold as well. The magnets on the back are 40% stronger than Apple cases with an 18N magnetic ring, so you can attach to hold your iPhone when you're on a phone call or doing anything else. The case has 4-layer protection and abrasion protection, so it's abrasion resistant if you accidentally drop your phone, and it's also highly stain resistant with a nano-coated surface to help resist fingerprints, spills, and more. Taurus can also help you keep your display scratch-free with their Auric Armor anti-reflective screen protectors. They're super easy to install with a roller tray, and they allow 95% of light to pass through, making them super clear and color accurate. They also feature a curved edge, making swiping edge to edge more comfortable. It features a top-tier anti-fingerprint coating and is also scratch and drop resistant. I'll leave a link in the description below so you can check them out as well. Now, a few other things I would enable for the camera have to do with helping you get the most out of it. So, for example, this grid that we have here, that's something that I typically enable to help me sort of get the framing of my video right. So maybe I want the phone back here. I want it to be framed in the center. It helps me center that. There's a couple settings you need to enable to show that. So if we go back into our settings, you'll see we have all of our camera settings here. And under composition, we have a few options. So we have grid, level, mirror front camera, and view outside the frame. I would recommend enabling grid if you want that 3x3 frame, as well as level to help you make sure that your photos and video are level if you're going to use that. You can also mirror the front camera if you want to do that, and that's something I would highly recommend playing around with to get the most out of it. Now also, if we go into the camera, within the camera itself, we'll go to photo. It's a little bit different this year, but let's just rotate it like this. You'll see that we have different options. If we go into our options, we have different aspect ratios. So depending on how you want to frame things, I typically use 16:9 just for maybe a YouTube thumbnail, but maybe you want full-size photos, you can use 4:3. So I would try this out, see what works best for you, and then modify it as needed. One thing you can also do is maybe you set that frame rate like I mentioned before. We switch over to video mode here, and you'll see we have our frame rate options here. You can actually change the frame rate after you've recorded the video. So maybe I set it to 120. I'll go ahead and record video here just for a few seconds. And I think, well, maybe I want to change that frame rate and I don't really want it at 120. I can go into my options here and edit, and you'll see that we have a few options in the upper right. So under the upper right here, it says playback speed. We have 50% at 60 frames per second or 25% at 30 frames per second. So maybe I want it at 30 frames per second instead. I can enable it that way. Or again, maybe I decide I wanted it 60 frames per second. I can switch between any of those. And if I didn't maybe record in the best frame rate, I can just slow it down or speed it up. So that's something I would highly recommend based on how you record things. Now, if you want to record professional video with the iPhone 17 Pro or 17 Pro Max, Apple has given us the ability to record ProRes RAW this year. Now, in order to do this, you'll need a free app such as Final Cut Camera or Blackmagic Camera, and you'll need an external drive in order to do it. So I have a Samsung T5 1TB drive. If we plug it in here, we can plug it in with USB or Thunderbolt, but they're backward compatible. If we go into Final Cut Camera, you'll see here we have 44 minutes of footage connected to that external drive. We can change the formats. If I go to ProRes RAW, high quality, only 29 minutes. And I do have some data on here, but I've found that even if it's empty with 1 terabyte left, I have about maybe an hour of footage in ProRes regular here, ProRes RAW. So depending on how you want to record it, you can do it, but it's full RAW footage you can manipulate afterward with a LUT and everything else. So I played around with this a little bit with the Apple Watch SE. You can even see the LUT, what it would look like after you set it, or here's the RAW footage right out of here. So this is something I would recommend trying out, but the file size is huge. And of course, you'll need something like Final Cut Pro in order to edit that with new updated formats. Now, last year, Apple introduced Camera Control. It's a new button that allows you to control the camera, and we can go into it with a single press, and Apple has added some additional options this year. So there's some settings you should know about. So the way it works, if you're not familiar, is half press it, you can get into settings and slide back and forth to things such as zoom. So if you want to do that, half press or half double press, and you've got your options. But you'll see my options are limited right now because I've actually set them to only show a couple different things or the things that I use normally. So I can switch between cameras or switch between zoom. So if I just want zoom, I can smooth zoom in and out, sliding back and forth. But you can customize this in your settings. So back under our camera settings, under Camera Control this time, you'll see under Camera, you can choose to launch the camera with Camera Control or even open a third-party app. However, if we scroll down, you'll see Controls and Customize. Under Customize, we have gestures here for light press and swipe, and now we can show specific things. So I only had zoom in cameras, but you can add exposure, depth, styles, and tone. So if you don't want any of those, you can turn them off, or you can customize it however you'd like and put those in the Camera Control themselves. I would also recommend going into your settings and going under Action Button and customizing the Action Button. Apple has added additional capabilities. So if we start at the beginning, we have silent mode, focus, camera. We also have visual intelligence, flashlight, voice memo, recognize music. We can use it for translate, magnifier, controls, shortcuts, and then accessibility features or no action. Now, controls is really nice because you can use anything that's in the control center. So if you don't want to use it for anything other than flashlight, you don't have to. Or if you want it to customize something such as a reminder, you can just use it to make a reminder. So if you want to set it as a reminder, press and hold, and now you can create a reminder at the top instantly by pressing the action button. So you can customize this however you'd like, but this is a setting I'd recommend you try out, maybe see about the controls, or set something different if you don't want that. Maybe you use ambient music all the time, or Apple Intelligence, or just want to set an alarm. You can set that button to anything now. One thing you may not be familiar with is that the iPhones have a boot up sound and a shutdown sound. Now this isn't necessarily new, but you can enable and disable this. So if I shut this one down, you can now do that from the control center, press and hold the power button there, and slide to power off. We'll turn it off, and now you can hear the sound. If you want that sound to be on, you can enable it. If you don't want it, you can disable it. So now we'll turn this back on. Give it a second. And there's the boot up sound. So we'll wait for that to boot up, but we can enable that in our settings. So if we go under settings, we'll go back out here, and this time we'll go to accessibility. If we scroll down, we'll keep going down here. You'll see audio and visual. Within audio and visual, if we scroll down again, you'll see power on and off sounds. I would recommend enabling or disabling that however you'd like. I actually like to have it on so I can hear when it actually turns off or turns back on. But I would recommend just messing around with this, changing it to however works best for you, along with all of the different settings here as well. If you're someone like me that really misses 3D touch, where you would press on the display, it was pressure sensitive, and then it would pop open menus, it still works, and it works with haptic press, but sometimes it can be a little bit slow. But if you want it to feel more like when we had 3D press, there's a way to change that. So again, in our accessibility settings, if we scroll down, under touch this time, if we scroll down here to haptic touch, you'll see we have a couple different options. I have it set to fast, which makes it feel much more like 3D pressing. So if we go to default, we can press and see what it's like. If we turn it to fast, you'll see it's much faster to just pop open. Slow, if you don't like it, is very slow to enable that action, but I typically leave it at fast so it just pops open like I'm 3D pressing. Now, iPhone overall has been fairly safety conscious over the past few years, and there's some really nice features that could help you depending on your situation. So if you scroll down in your settings, go to Emergency SOS, and then scroll down again, you'll see that we have Call with Hold and Release. I have this enabled, so what it does is if you continuously hold the side buttons and either volume button, a countdown begins and an alarm sounds. After the countdown, if you release the buttons, iPhone will then call emergency services. So that's something that was really helpful, maybe if you're in a bad situation. Also, call quietly. Warning alarms, flashes, and voiceover audio will be silenced when using hold and release. So if maybe you would need this in an emergency, turn on call quietly, and then you can place that call in an emergency without anyone knowing. Now, one that I've actually unfortunately been able to use personally is crash detection. It shows call after severe crash. If you're in a car crash, iPhone and Apple Watch can automatically call emergency services. Your device will start a countdown and sound an alarm before the call. I experienced this myself a few years back. Thankfully, no one was hurt. I was able to cancel this, but had I needed it, it was going to call emergency services. It started to sound an alarm and a countdown to call emergency services, which would have been very helpful had I needed it. So I'm grateful that it's there. It sounded on my iPhone and Apple Watch as well. So again, enable these or disable these based on what you need, but those are things I would value based on your overall needs. One other thing I would recommend looking at as far as settings has to do with phone. If we go into our settings and then we go all the way down to apps and then we go to phone, within phone, and if we scroll down, you'll see there's a new option for hold assist detection. Automatically detect when you're placed on hold so you can step away. iPhone will then notify you when it's time to pick up. So this is something I've used recently. When you place a phone call, you can place them on hold, and then it will just hold that call and notify you when it's time to actually pick up the phone. Let me show you what it looks like. So I've placed a call to Apple, and if we go to the three-dot menu where it says More, we can go to Hold Assist. When using this, it says you'll be notified to pick up the call. So it will sort of go away, and when it's time to pick up the call, it will notify us by vibrating the phone and making noise on the watch as well. We can also go into the call here where it says I'm an automated system that can handle it, and now it's letting me know with vibrations, and I can tap and pick up or just end. So that's something I can choose to do and just do it from here. We can hang up the call. We don't want to continue it. But that's one thing that I would highly recommend trying out as it's super useful. Another thing in the phone settings is down here under Screen Unknown Callers. Apple has updated it this year with a new option to ask reason for calling. So when someone calls in, it will actually ask them with an automated message and then say, what's your reason for calling? Then they'll speak, you'll see it on your screen, and then you can choose to pick up. If you don't like this at all, you can turn it to never and that won't happen, or you can silence all calls as well. But if you're not receiving calls, I would recommend checking these settings as sometimes these can interfere. The same is true below with unknown callers. It says missed calls and voicemails from unknown numbers will be moved to the unknown callers list, so it detects that as well as spam. Now finally, there's a couple customizations I wanted to show you that have to do with maybe your home screen itself. So again, if we put on the Taurus case here, press and hold, go to Edit, Customize, we can go to Tinted and then tint the icons similar to what we have here. So if we want everything to look that way, we can change it, make it match the case that we have, or just change it to whatever we want. We can also make them clear icons, and I go into this in detail in other videos on how to use iOS 26. But if we want light or dark clear icons, we can do that, or just have what I had before. So I would recommend checking out all the settings, customizing it for however works best for you with all of the different settings we've gone over. There's many more, and I've covered those in separate videos as well, so be sure to check those out if you're interested. I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.